5% of the way, you had 85% of the product.
Yeah.
Let's say the additional 15% is what you had to adapt to the market.
Yeah.
Right. I'm always kind of using this. I'm like, you had this, customer's pain was this, you got to kind of shift it a couple of degrees so it fits really well together.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a question or a point, but I think like you kind of answered it with like, if there was a month's worth of work you've been working on for 6 months and it's, say it's 15%, you were most of the way there. And it was this last, I don't know, month, 6 weeks of like talking to customers, getting feedback that helped you understand which 15% you needed. I think it was the point. Is that a fair way?
Dude, that's exactly, that's exactly what it was. Like when we started out, we had this loose idea of a product and we were actually most of the way there. We just didn't know what the difference was between this product that we kind of had right now, or at the beginning of the experiment, and a product that we could sell. Like the difference in terms of actual development time was shockingly small. Like the two changes basically that we had to make to our assessment that worked for customer support, we had to make basically two, maybe two minor changes, right? One, we needed to create a couple assessment types that made sense for sales, but those aren't that hard actually. It's like writing cold emails, making cold calls, leaving voicemails. It wasn't that hard because we had the infrastructure in place already. And then the other thing was that we needed to figure out basically how to take the company that you're working on behalf of in the job simulator and swap it out for your company. But that's not the actual work, right? Like where the actual work is like, if you don't know where that last 15% of work comes from, you could spend years, right? Just totally in the dark, taking half-assed stabs at what people actually want. Or you could bite the bullet, have a bunch of really excruciating customer development calls that go nowhere, and just keep trying different stuff until you find, like a customer segment that needs what you want badly enough that they'll kind of guide you through the growing pains and teach you, hey, this is what you need to do in order to make the product actually useful for us. And the problem is that no one is like enough of an oracle to actually tell you what that is. You need to get that from a bunch of different people. And I don't think there's a single customer development call where we went on it and everything they said was 100% like true. It was like, the good ones, they'll say a bunch of stuff that's directionally accurate and then a bunch of stuff that's very hyper specific to them as a company. And the trick is figuring out what are the commonalities and are there enough commonalities to actually build a business around this.
That's it, folks. That's the podcast.
Hey, that's right.
No, I mean, I obviously have more questions, but I mean, that is the point, right? That is why that is the right way to do sales as a founder. Sales, customer development, whatever you want to call it, like that last tip, the customer development process where you say, I've done some research and now I'm going to try and take it to market, right? And like that to me is the thing that gets missed so many times, so frequently, is people say, okay, I've done the research. Now I'm going to hire a salesperson. I'm going to hire a VP. I'm going to hire somebody. I need you to go figure this out. And now you outsource what is effectively the most important part of your company journey to a salesperson you hired. And nothing against salespeople. I am one, or at least I started life as a salesperson. But it's you as a founder, you're taking one of the most important, or if not the most important decision at the company. And you're saying, this is somebody else's problem.
Yeah. I mean, a good salesperson, right? Like you give them a script and they'll knock it out of the park. But if it's a new thing, you got to write the script first, right? Like it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are if you don't know, like, I mean, here's the thing that made the first few customer development calls so painful is that, and I didn't even put this together until I started thinking about just like, the sales experiment and recapping it. Like, I think kind of to me, what the point of customer development is almost is just figuring out where it is, where like the person you're talking to, like when and where do their eyes light up? Because like, that's what made the first 25 customer development calls. That's what made that so painful. It's just, I'd be talking to them and it's just like, there's nothing there. It's like talking to a brick wall the whole time. And like rightfully so, obvious, because they don't need our shit and they're busy and they got other things to do. But like once we started talking to like people who were founders of outsourcing companies, we were just talking to people who were like, they were just like, fuck man, this is a real problem. Like we have this problem. And like honestly, some of the best calls were with founders who are like, I had this problem 5 years ago and I spent like 6 months building a good solution for this. I don't need the thing that you're building because we already did it ourselves and it was a huge pain in the ass. That was kind of one of the most gratifying things to hear over and over again when we were reaching out to these kind of later stage outsourcing companies. And yeah, man, like if you don't do the actual customer development calls, you're never going to build this intuition about what is it about what you're doing that makes people's eyes light up. And for us, we realized that like, oh, when people see the product, that's when they actually get interested in it. If it's someone who has this problem, when they see the actual product, then that's when their eyes light up. And that, I think, illustrates another problem of just throwing AEs at the problem, because when we realized that the product is what people really liked, then that got us thinking like, what is the GTM for this company? It's probably not going to be like a traditional enterprise sales model where we this like, do this cold email, do this like outreach sequence with a bunch of touch points, do a qualification call, and then like people don't get to see the product until like the third step of the process. Like that's probably not going to be the GTM for this company. Like for this company, it probably makes more sense to like start off reaching out to people cold, do like a beta program type thing, but try to work as quickly as possible to a point where people can, work as quickly as possible to a point where people can sign up for the product on their own. And while you're getting to that point, kind of have a more traditional sales process. But if that's like, if you learn something that like is like, oh, the product's really good, then if we had hired a bunch of AEs to do this, then we would have probably twisted our freaking brain in knots trying to figure out how to justify keeping these AEs around. Whereas the right thing for the business is probably to just like do founder-led for a little bit, but cut bait on that as soon as, like a more product-led growth type strategy starts working. So, I still have no idea how this is actually going to end up, but like if the product is really interesting, we should be foregrounding that.
Exactly. 2 points to make. One, I think if you hire and try and do this through an AE, there's one layer of insulation between you and the customer with the end problem. And I'm not saying the AEs can't find it. Their job is to find pain. But specifically, an AE comes with a set of firmware, which is their comp plan. And you say, hey, this is the thing that you need to sell. Go sell this. This is how you sell it. This is what I'm going to pay you to sell it. You're not paying them to do customer development. Some AEs will do this automatically, naturally, as part of their discovery process. Some AEs are great at this. Some AEs are not great at this. But I think there's an important distinction to draw between doing a customer development interview and doing an early sales call, right? The second piece I wanted to highlight, that moment where their eyes light up. Like I want to point out the forest through the trees here. Like we are looking, the point of a customer development interview, the point of starting a new company is to solve a problem that hasn't been solved before. What we are looking for is unmet needs. And that what you saw in their eyes was unmet needs. People going, oh shit, you can do this? Like that moment where they're like, oh, wait a minute. Really? That is what we're looking for. Like I remember getting that for carb. And like people were going, oh, wait a minute.
Wow.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Wait, let me catch up. Wait. Like they almost didn't understand. Their brain is drawing new connections. Like they didn't know you could do that. And I'm like, this is why we start companies. This is that magic moment. This is that like founder heroine that we're all chasing this dragon, right?
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah.
Unmet needs. That's the whole point of all of this, is to try and find those unmet needs. If you are not saying that, you are not finding people that have unmet needs. You are finding people that have their needs met by whatever's currently out there already.